Every stone they moved should have been impossible. Millions died building it. Dynasties bankrupted themselves for it. And it never stopped a single major invasion. Yet every breach didn't end the wall. It justified building more. The failure became the engine of expansion. 2,000 years. Dynasty after dynasty, piling stone upon stone across thousands of kilometers. The wall failed repeatedly. They built more anyway. Was this obsession, desperation, or a calculation that history has never given them proper credit for understanding? China's northern edge offered no natural defenses. No mountains, no rivers, nothing. Just open steppe stretching endlessly into the horizon. And from that emptiness came the most mobile fighting force the ancient world had ever seen. The empire needed an answer. They had no cities, no written records, no fixed borders. But for centuries, the Xiongnu haunted Chinese emperors like a shadow that could not be caught. Riders who vanished into the steppe the moment pursuit began. Faceless, relentless, everywhere. 3 investigations await us. The engineering feat that defied reason, the strategy that kept failing, and the hidden truth about what this wall was really for. This is not the story of one wall. It is the story of 5 walls, 5 dynasties, and 5 generations of people who gave everything to build something that kept breaking under the pressure of history. To understand why they built it, we must go back to the beginning. To a man who unified a fractured nation through sheer terror. 221 BC. Qin Shi Huang has crushed 6 kingdoms beneath his will. But his northern frontier bleeds. He orders General Meng Tian, connect the scattered walls, seal the wound. One continuous barrier, built by force, on borrowed time. Meng Tian commands 300,000 men, soldiers, conscripts, criminals. No cranes, no machinery. Every stone hauled by human hands across mountains that would challenge modern engineers. The scale is almost impossible to comprehend. No mortar, no cut stone, just earth, rammed into layers, pounded until it rivaled concrete in hardness. This technique was brilliant in its simplicity. Walls rose in weeks. The Qin completed entire sections in years, not generations. The Ming Dynasty alone constructed 8,850 kilometers of wall, a distance equivalent to crossing North America coast to coast 5.5 times over. That staggering scale demanded generations of labor, immense wealth, and countless lives. And yet, despite this monumental investment, the invasions continued without pause. By 210 BC, thousands of kilometers of defensive wall stood where nothing had existed before. Then, Qin Shi Huang died. Within just 4 years, his entire empire collapsed, leaving the wall that had consumed a generation standing empty, abandoned by the very civilization that had built it. Without an empire to maintain it, the Qin wall simply crumbled away. The Xiongnu cavalry merely rode around the deteriorating gaps. The first bitter lesson had been written in mud and silence. A wall without soldiers guarding it is merely a very long, expensive pile of dirt. Every breach demanded a response. Every response demanded more wall. The cycle never ended. It only worsened. Han Gaozu, the empire's founding emperor, rode north personally to crush the Xiongnu threat. He never anticipated the trap waiting for him at Baideng, surrounded for 7 agonizing days with no food, no escape route. The most powerful man in all of China, completely trapped. The most powerful man in China purchased his freedom by paying his enemies in women and silk just to leave him alive. The wall had stopped nothing, not a single raid. It had failed catastrophically even before the mortar had dried on its stones. Emperor Wu rejected mere defense and attacked the problem at its source. He extended the wall westward, driving it deep into the Gobi Desert's heart. The enemy's own homeland became a buffer zone instead. China's border was no longer just a defensive line, it had become a weapon. In the harsh desert where stone was scarce, Han engineers innovated out of necessity, layering tamarisk reeds, gravel, and compacted sand into composite wall sections. Modern testing reveals these sections successfully resisted erosion for centuries, a remarkable achievement born not from abundant resources, but from ingenuity facing scarcity. But Emperor Wu's true innovation was not the wall itself. It was the nervous system operating along it, a chain of signal towers that could carry urgent warnings across 750 kilometers in mere hours. The wall had transformed into something far more powerful, an information network. Archaeologists have uncovered hundreds of these signal tablets, supply orders, troop counts, personal letters. Ordinary men stationed at the edge of the known world. Those staggering death toll figures, 400,000, perhaps a million, come mostly from chronicles and oral tradition. No systematic excavation, no skeletal analysis has confirmed mass burials inside the wall itself. The numbers reflect historical narrative far more than verified archaeological evidence. When the Han fell in 220 AD, so did any hand maintaining the wall. For nearly 4 centuries, China fractured into competing kingdoms. The wall became a ghost, still standing in places but belonging to no one, neglected, powerless. Each time a dynasty fell, the wall fell with it. And each successor faced the same unbearable choice. The Northern Wei rebuilt it, then the Sui. Each dynasty mobilized hundreds of thousands, laborers torn from fields and families. Each project bled their treasuries dry and strained their grip on power. The wall demanded everything. Still, it was never enough. In 607 AD, Emperor Yang conscripted 1 million men to rebuild the wall. Half of them never came home. The dead fields they left behind ignited peasant uprisings, and within 15 years, the Sui dynasty collapsed entirely. Then came the Tang, one of China's greatest dynasties. And they made a radical choice. No rebuilding, no more walls. They would project power outward instead. Cavalry, diplomacy, alliance. The wall, they decided, was a trap. Tang cavalry didn't hide behind walls. They swept across the steppe itself, breaking nomadic power at its source. A generation of genuine security followed. The wall stood silent, unnecessary. Then the Tang collapsed, and the old nightmare returned. Then came the Mongols. Every strategy China had built, walls, cavalry, diplomacy, tribute, crumbled before them. Genghis Khan did not break the wall. He went around it, through it, and over it, guided by Chinese defectors who knew every gap. The wall's greatest vulnerability was never structural. It was human betrayal. In 1368, a peasant who had survived Mongol occupation clawed his way to the throne. He had witnessed what happened when China had no wall to defend it. He would never allow that to happen again. Scholars remain bitterly divided on the wall's true purpose. Was it born from catastrophic miscalculation or ruthless calculation? The signal tower network alone could convey warnings across 750 kilometers. Some argue psychological deterrence and communication justified the staggering cost. Others insist those same resources, deployed as mobile cavalry forces, would have actually stopped the invasions entirely. Ming engineers faced a challenge no previous dynasty had solved: building fortifications in the mountains. Their answer transformed logistics. They created portable kilns that fired bricks on site, wherever the wall climbed higher. The mountain itself became the supply chain, resources extracted and processed in place. Every single brick was stamped. The kiln, the supervisor, the worker who shaped it. If it crumbled within 3 years, that worker was tracked down and punished. This wasn't mere bureaucracy. It was quality control enforced by the explicit threat of death. The logistics were genuinely staggering. Grain, timber, iron, lime, hauled across hundreds of kilometers to mountain sites barely reachable by foot. Moving a single ton of material to a remote ridge cost more than constructing the identical section on flat ground. The supply chain itself became an engineering marvel. In 1449, the Ming Emperor led his entire army northward, past the incomplete wall, directly into a Mongol trap. The wall had not failed him. He had simply walked around it. A century later, Altan Khan's cavalry didn't besiege the wall at all. They rode through a poorly defended pass and made camp within sight of Beijing. The Ming court watched helplessly from the ramparts as their own suburbs burned around them. Military historians have modeled the mathematics precisely. Mounted cavalry covered 80 kilometers daily. Defenders on foot managed barely 30. A breach spotted at dawn meant enemy forces arrived long before reinforcements could reach the position. The wall was fighting the wrong battle entirely. Qi Guang abandoned the idea of holding a simple line. Instead, he redesigned the wall itself, hollow watchtowers large enough for archers, stocked with weapons and supplies. He was constructing killing zones where attackers slowed and defenders concentrated their overwhelming force. Qi Guang's towers became small fortresses, arrow slits, cannon ports, quarters for 50 fighting men. For the first time, the wall became what architects always envisioned, a linked reactive defense network operating signal to signal, tower to tower, across vast distances. By 1644, the Ming had spent 1/3 of their entire imperial budget on the most sophisticated wall in human history. It had held the north for decades successfully. Then, a single gate opened from the inside. In 1644, General Wu Sangui confronted a rebel army that had seized Beijing. He chose not to wait for a siege. Instead, he made a calculation. He unlocked the Shanhai Pass himself, inviting the Manchu through. The wall's greatest breach required no battering ram, no assault, just one man's decision to open the gates. 276 years, uncountable lives spent defending it. Yet the wall was never breached by force, never climbed, never destroyed through siege. It was walked through, by invitation. The wall had never been the barrier at all. The real wall stood elsewhere, behind the stone. Archaeologists uncovered inscriptions carved directly into watchtower stone near Shanhai Pass, soldiers recording their own existence. One reads, "I have guarded this place for 20 years. I do not know who I am guarding it for." The words remain, etched in frustration and doubt, a garrison's honest doubt. So was the Great Wall a failure? Every military historian will tell you, yes. It stopped no invasion, altered no conquest. Every engineer who studied it will tell you something else entirely. It didn't stop invasions, but it built a civilization around the act of trying, around persistence itself. The wall was never only military. It collected tariffs on Silk Road caravans, quarantined plague, managed migration flows. It drew the line between civilization and wilderness. China's border infrastructure, built in stone and sustained by dynasty after dynasty, each generation adding its own labor to the work before. Modern economists uncovered something remarkable. Wall-managed Silk Road tariffs may have recouped a significant portion of Ming construction costs, tens of millions in modern currency. This was never purely defensive. Beneath the stone and mortar lay something far more calculated. A revenue mechanism spanning thousands of kilometers, a frontier tax collector in brick. Every dynasty knew the wall would not stop every invasion. They built it anyway, because it was never only a barrier against enemies. It was a declaration. To those inside, you are protected, you belong here. To those beyond, you are not us, you are outside. 2,000 years of building, maintaining, and dying for this. The engineers weren't naive about what the wall could and couldn't do. They were solving a problem with no perfect solution, and they solved it the only way any civilization ever does. They kept going, generation after generation, refusing to stop. It failed to stop the Mongols, the Manchu, the Xiongnu. But it kept China intact. Every stone whispered the same message. We are still here. The engineering beneath the Ming wall runs far deeper than stone. That story comes next. Subscribe so you don't miss it.